Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It is a pleasure to be back in the studio.
Today is going to be a heavy one. We are doing something that feels a little bit like walking into an operating theater. We aren't just summarizing a stack of articles or a new study today. We are performing, I think, an autopsy on Western culture itself.
That's a powerful way to put it, and entirely accurate.
We are dedicating this deep dive to a dissection of a seminal work in the canon of Western thought. We are looking at the birth of a concept that gets thrown around constantly in pop culture, but is almost never actually understood: the free spirit.
Right. A concept that is, I've often plastered on bumper stickers or coffee mugs or t-shirts worn by people at music festivals.
Exactly.
But the origin of this concept is far more rigorous, far more, scientific, and frankly, far more terrifying than most people realize.
That's the perfect word for it, terrifying. The text we are diving into today is Human, All Too Human, a book for free spirits by Friedrich Nietzsche. And our mission today is very specific. We are going to bypass the bumper sticker slogans. We're going to ignore the mustache, the later descent into madness, and the God is dead cliches. We want to engage directly with the text's surgical dismantling of metaphysics, morality, and religion.
We want to understand how Nietzsche constructs what he calls a chemistry of the soul.
A chemistry, yeah. And chemistry really is the operative word here, isn't it? This isn't poetry, it's a laboratory.
It is. It's cold, it's analytical, and it's meant to break things down into their component parts.
So let's set the stage. The context here is it's vital, because this book represents a massive break for Nietzsche. It feels so different from his other work.
It is entirely different. If you look at the preface, he describes the intellectual climate he is writing from. He calls it a great liberation. And you have to understand, before this book, which was published around 1878, Nietzsche was very much under the spell of two major figures.
Right, the big two.
The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer and the composer Richard Wagner.
The dynamic duo of German heaviness.
Precisely. Schopenhauer was all about pessimism, the denial of the will, this heavy metaphysical gloom that basically said existence is a mistake.
A fun dinner guest, I'm
Oh, absolutely. And Wagner. Wagner was the high priest of Romanticism. He dealt in mythology, grand emotion, the Germanic spirit, the idea of the genius artist as a kind of demigod.
And in Human, All Too Human, Nietzsche basically takes a sledgehammer to both of them.
He does more than that. He dissects them. He actually refers to Richard Wagner's incurable romanticism as if it's a disease.
Wow.
He realized that this romantic idealism was a drug. It was falsifying reality to make it feel better, to make it grander. So this book is essentially his withdrawal symptom.
That's a great way to think about it.
He mentions writing it from a place of illness and isolation. He signs the preface, "Nice Spring 1886," though the book had circulated earlier. And he calls himself an old immoralist and bird snarer.
I love that phrase, bird snarer. It implies he's setting traps for the reader.
He is. He's setting traps for the unwary intellect. He describes the text as a school of suspicion. He is turning away from the grand, comforting lies of the past, the romantic lies, and moving toward a cold, hard, unflinching look at reality. He questions everything that was previously held sacred.
Which brings us to the dedication of the book, The Free Spirit. Who is this person? Is this just Nietzsche talking about himself? Is it an aspirational figure?
It is, in a way, but it's more of a projection. In the text, Nietzsche admits that these free spirits do not actually exist yet.
They don't exist.
Not yet. He says they are coming slowly, slowly. The free spirit is an ideal type. It's someone who has liberated themselves from the fetters of tradition, duty, habit, and maybe most importantly, the need for absolute certainty.
So it's someone who can live without the crutches of religion or metaphysical comfort.
Exactly. Someone who can stand in the cold wind of reality without blinking.
Okay, so if that's the character we're aiming for, this person who can stand in the cold, let's look at the central argument. What is the thesis of this entire book?
The thesis is devastatingly simple, and that's what makes it so powerful. Nietzsche argues that everything we revere, truth with a capital T, morality, religion, the very concept of the soul, all of these high, magnificent things have evolved from humble, often embarrassing and erroneous origins.
They are human, all too human.
That's it. He proposes using what he calls a historical philosophy to decompose these high ideals into their basic earthly chemistry.
Okay, let's unpack that chemistry metaphor, because that kicks off part one of first and last things. It's such a striking image for a philosopher to use.
It is, and he uses it to ask a fundamental question. How can something arise from its opposite?
Right.
How can logic arise from the illogical? How can truth arise from error? How can altruism, selflessness arise from pure egoism? The traditional metaphysical view is that these higher things must have a miraculous origin.
They must come from God or from some perfect other world.
Exactly. They must come from the thing in itself, from some noumenal realm, because they are too pure to come from the muck and mire of biology.
And Nietzsche says, no, look closer.
He says, look much, much closer. He says if you actually perform a chemistry of the moral, religious, and aesthetic conceptions, you might find something shocking. You might find that the most magnificent colors of the human soul are derived from base, despised ingredients.
It's a bit like finding out that the most beautiful perfume is made from, whale vomit or the scent glands of a musk deer.
That is a perfect analogy. The end result is sublime, but the origin is biological and messy and, frankly, a little disgusting. And the reason philosophers miss this for centuries, according to Nietzsche, is what he calls the hereditary fault of philosophers. They lack a historical sense.
They treat man as a statue, as something fixed.
Yes. They treat man as an eterna veritas, an eternal truth. They look at a man in 1878, a civilized, moral, rational European, and they just assume his logic, his morals, and his feelings are how man has always been forever.
And that's just not true.
Nietzsche is one of the first to really hammer home the idea that man has evolved. Not just physically, which Darwin had established, but intellectually. The faculty of reason itself is an outcome of evolution.
So there are no internal facts.
And no absolute truths. Everything is in flux. Our logic isn't a perfect reflection of the universe. It's a tool. It's a clumsy tool that happened to help us survive.
One of the most fascinating and, frankly, mind-bending parts of this section is his theory on the origin of metaphysics. He ties it directly to dream logic. It blew my mind when I first read it.
It is a brilliant and unsettling insight. He argues that in our dreams, every single night, we revert to an earlier stage of humanity.
To a more primitive mind.
A much more primitive mind. Think about it. In a dream, you see a dead person, your father maybe, or a grandparent, and you believe they are still alive. You talk to them.
Yeah.
You see a cause and an effect that isn't really there. A dog barks outside, and you dream of a fire alarm to explain the sound. Your brain just invents a cause.
So he's saying early man didn't really know the difference between waking life and dream life.
Not clearly. And Nietzsche suggests that without this confusion, without dreams, mankind might never have invented the separation of body and soul.
How does that work?
Well, in the dream, the body is lying still in the cave, but the spirit travels. It hunts, it flies, it meets the spirits of the dead. This is the origin of the second world, the world of souls, gods, and the afterlife. Metaphysics is essentially dream logic applied to the waking world.
That is a staggering thought, that our entire religious architecture, all our cathedrals and our theology and our concepts of heaven is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of REM sleep.
It fits his thesis perfectly, doesn't it? A base origin for a high ideal. He also attacks language in this section. He says language itself is a trap.
A trap how?
Language presupposes that things exist. We say the lightning flashes as if there is a lightning that is a thing separate from the flash, which is its action.
But there isn't. The lightning is a flash.
Exactly. But our grammar forces us into this subject-object duality that doesn't exist in nature. In nature, there are no separate things. There are no identical things. Science eventually reveals that the thing in itself, that holy grail of philosophy, is probably just a void. He says it might just be a subject for Homeric laughter.
So if metaphysics is a dream and language is a trap, what's left? He seems to be championing something he calls little truths.
Yes. This is the big shift in his work. It's a move away from romanticism and toward a more scientific positivism. He says the little simple truths gained by a rigorous method, even if they are unsexy, even if they are modest, are worth more than the pleasing and magnificent errors of metaphysical ages.
He's telling us to grow up.
He is. To trade the beautiful, comforting lie for the plain, difficult truth.
Which brings us to the surgery of morals, part 2. If part 1 was chemistry, this is where he picks up the scalpel.
He actually compares psychological observation to using a scalpel. He admits it can be repulsive. No one likes to see what's inside the gut. But he says it is absolutely necessary to cure what he calls the moral hypochondria of humanity. And he drops a heavy quote here. He says, "The moral man stands no nearer the knowable world than the physical man."
That is the core of his critique right there.
Yeah.
We tend to think that being moral or spiritual connects us to some higher truth, some deeper reality.
And Nietzsche says, no, morality is just biology and sociology in disguise. And he starts by attacking the most sacred cow of all, free will.
The waterfall analogy.
Ah, yes.
I love this visual. It's so clear.
It's beautiful and it's terrifying. He says, imagine a waterfall. You see the spray, you see the droplets curving and dashing against the rocks. It looks like chaos. It looks like freedom.
Right. Each drop seems to be choosing its own path.
But he says, if you could see every single droplet, every wind current, every geometric angle of the rock, every molecule of water, you would see that every single movement is calculated and necessary. Not a single droplet could have gone 1 millimeter to the left or to the right.
And human action is the waterfall.
Precisely. We feel like we are making choices. I choose to pick up this glass of water. But that is only because we can't see the microscopic chain of causes, our genetics, our environment, the state of our nerves at this exact moment, the cultural pressure that forces us to act in one specific way.
So if there is no free will, then what?
Then there is no responsibility. Nietzsche argues for total irresponsibility. That is such a radical concept, it's hard to even wrap your head around it.
And no one is responsible for anything.
No one is responsible for their nature, their motives, or their actions. We are the result of all the elements of the past and all the influences of the present. We couldn't be any other way.
This is a dangerous thought. I mean, if I go and rob a bank, Nietzsche's saying I'm not guilty in the metaphysical sense.
He says the bite of conscience is irrational. He says it's like a dog biting a stone. You were biting the thing that hurt you, but the thing had no choice in the matter. The stone couldn't choose not to be a stone.
So to judge someone is to be unjust. So how does he explain where our ideas of good and evil came from, if not from some divine tablet? If it's not real, why do we all have it?
He traces it to power dynamics. This is the seed of what he would later write in his more famous work, The Genealogy of Morals. He says originally, good didn't mean nice or altruistic. It meant powerful.
The masters, the nobles.
Exactly. The ones who could requite meaning, if you do something good for me, I have the power to reward you. If you harm me, I have the power to harm you back. Goodness was a function of strength.
And bad.
Bad meant the powerless, the subjugated, the common people who couldn't pay you back, who couldn't defend themselves. It was a caste distinction, not a moral one. You are bad just meant you are beneath me.
So how did it flip? How did good become associated with being useful or with following the rules?
Over time, he argues, the values of the herd took over. The community decided that what was good was what was useful or customary. To be moral is simply to obey the tradition of the herd. To be bad is to be unusual, to break custom, to be an individual who is dangerous to the stability of the group.
He also deconstructs justice. He says justice originates only between approximate equals.
Right. This is so key. If I am all-powerful and you are a worm, I don't need justice with you. I just step on you.
There's no negotiation.
None. Justice is a barter. It's a truce between two powers that are afraid of hurting each other uselessly. It's the original, I won't hit you if you don't hit me. It's a pragmatic arrangement, not a divine ideal.
It's very, very transactional.
Everything in Nietzsche's view is transactional or physiological, even virtue. He goes on to dissect things like pity and compassion, which are usually seen as the highest Christian virtues.
And he really goes after pity. He agrees with the French philosopher La Rochefoucauld here.
He does. He suggests that showing pity can be a subtle way to humiliate the sufferer. It's a way of saying, look at you, so broken. I am so glad I am up here in my safety looking down on you. It reinforces your own power.
And conversely, the sufferer might want your pity.
Because it gives them power. If I can make you feel bad for me, I have power over your emotions. I can cause you pain by making you witness my pain.
It's a power struggle all the way down.
All the way down.
Oh.
Even in what we call evil, he says most evil acts are just self-preservation or the pursuit of pleasure. We kill a fly without conscience because it annoys us. A ruler executes a suspected traitor not because the ruler is evil, but for the stability of the state. It's the same cold logic. We are just biological organisms trying to survive and discharge our strength.
This leads us naturally into part 3, the autopsy of the saint. Because if there is anyone who seems to defy this selfish animal logic, it's the religious saint, the ascetic, the person who starves themselves and prays all day.
Right. The saint is the ultimate counterargument to this theory. And Nietzsche is fascinated by the saint, not because he believes in their holiness, he certainly doesn't, but because they are a psychological anomaly that needs explaining.
He calls religion a narcotic.
Yes. He says religion and art are attempts to alter feelings rather than cure the cause of the suffering.
What's the difference?
Well, if you have a broken leg, the doctor sets the bone. That's the scientist. The priest, on the other hand, gives you a story about how suffering is God's love or a test of faith, so you don't feel the pain as much. They are narcotic arts. They numb you to reality.
Sorrow is knowledge, he says.
That's the catch. The free spirit has to choose the difficult path of knowledge, which might hurt, over the comforting delusion of the religious man, the homo religiosus.
But let's go deeper into the origins of this. He links religion to sorcery.
This connects back to his view on nature. Early man viewed nature as a realm of freedom, capricious, unpredictable. Storms, droughts, diseases. It was all personal. The storm was angry.
So to control it, you needed to persuade it.
You needed cords and bribes. The magician is older than the priest. Worship began as a way to twist nature's arm. I'll give you this goat, O thunder god, and you give me rain. It's a power transaction.
And he views Christianity as a protruding bit of antiquity.
That is such a great phrase. He sees Christianity as a relic of that magical thinking that has somehow survived into the modern scientific world. But he makes a very sharp distinction between, say, Greek religion and Christianity. He thinks Christianity is fundamentally un-Greek. The Greeks projected their own noble caste into the heavens. Their gods were powerful, beautiful, jealous, sometimes cruel, but they were noble. They were idealized aristocrats.
Right.
Christianity, in Nietzsche's view, does the opposite. It crushes man into the mire. It tells you that you are sinful, broken, depraved, worthless, just so it can then dazzle you with the magical solution of grace. It lacks measure. He calls it Asiatic and barbaric because it deals in these unhealthy extremes of self-loathing and ecstasy.
Let's talk about that self-loathing. He has a very specific psychological explanation for the need for salvation.
He calls it a mirror trick. Man compares himself to a fabulous, impossible being God, or the perfect, selfless saint. Naturally, when you look at your real, flawed self in that mirror, you look hateful, you look sinful, but the mirror is a lie. You're comparing yourself to a fantasy.
And when you feel grace, when that burden is lifted...
That's just physiology. He says when the depression lifts due to natural bodily rhythms, maybe you got a good night's sleep or the weather changed, the religious man interprets that returned energy as divine grace. But it's just self-grace. It's your body returning to equilibrium. You just feel better.
So why do we admire the saint? If they are just delusional and caught in this psychological trap, why has history revered them for so long?
Because of the power drive. This is the key. Nietzsche argues the saint is actually exercising a supreme, ultimate form of power.
Power over whom? They don't have armies or wealth.
Power over himself.
Mm-hmm.
The saint tyrannizes parts of his own nature, his sexual drive, his hunger, his need for comfort. To crush your own most powerful instincts is a gymnastics of the will. It feels good to be that strong.
It's an internal conquest.
It is. And it's also a way to combat boredom.
Boredom.
Absolutely. Nietzsche suggests asceticism is often a cure for exhausted nerves or just plain boredom. The saint creates an inner enemy, sin, and fights a glorious war against it every single day. It makes life interesting. It makes them the center of a cosmic drama.
Which is a form of vanity.
The ultimate vanity. The humility of the saint is a sublimated, colossal vanity. To think that the creator of the universe is personally interested in whether you ate meat on Friday or had an impure thought about your neighbor?
Okay, so we've dissected the concepts, we've dissected the morals, we've dissected the saints. Now we finally arrive at the hero of the story, the free spirit. This is part 4.
This is the synthesis. After all the destruction, what do you build? Nietzsche outlines the biography of the free spirit, and it's a painful process.
It starts with chains.
It has to start with chains, the chains of duty. Reverence, habit, love for the tradition you were born into. We all start there. He says you can't be free if you were never bound. The great liberation. He describes it like an earthquake. It's sudden. The young soul is torn apart. A will develops to go anywhere at any price.
Better to die than live here. That's the quote.
Exactly. But this liberation is incredibly dangerous. It leads to what he calls the disease of detachment.
What does that mean?
The liberated spirit just destroys everything. He asks, can we not upset every standard? Is good perhaps evil? Is God only an invention and a finesse of the devil? He roves around fiercely, tearing things to pieces just for the sake of it. He lives without love or hate, in a morbid isolation.
It sounds like a teenager's nihilistic phase, but on a grand philosophical scale.
That's a perfect description. It is. But he sees it as a necessary sickness. You have to break the bones to reset them correctly.
And the resetting is convalescence.
This is the beautiful part of the book, I think. The free spirit eventually returns to health, but it's a new kind of health. He becomes a wanderer.
Not a traveler.
Right.
A wanderer.
Exactly. A traveler has a destination. A wanderer finds joy in the journey itself, in the near, in the little truth. He learns to bask in the sun. He doesn't need an absolute yes or an absolute no anymore. He can live in the ambiguity.
He also mentions that we are in the age of comparison. What does he mean by that?
That's his conclusion on culture. Because the free spirit has detached from his own tradition, he can now look at all cultures, all histories, and compare them without prejudice. We can choose. The ultimate goal is to move from a moral humanity, which is obsessed with guilt and punishment and sin, to a wise humanity.
A wise humanity that recognizes absolute irresponsibility and innocence.
Yes, to see the world as innocent, to see human actions, even the most evil ones, as necessary outgrowths of nature, just like a tree growing or storm breaking. That is the ultimate freedom for Nietzsche.
It's a breathtaking journey, from the chemical analysis of the soul all the way up to the mountain air of the wanderer.
It really is a complete revaluation of everything.
Okay, now that we've unpacked the text, it's time to see if these ideas hold water in the real world, or at least a hypothetical real world.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Welcome to the Thought Experiments segment.
And just a quick disclaimer, these scenarios are outlandish, but they are plausible applications of the text's logic. They are meant for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Right. Don't try this in a real courtroom. Okay, experiment number 1, the absolute irresponsibility courtroom.
Let's set the scene. We are in a modern courtroom. A defendant stands trial for a major crime, let's say a premeditated murder. The evidence is overwhelming.
The defense attorney stands up. But he doesn't argue insanity. He doesn't argue self-defense. He argues inevitability.
He brings in the Nietzschean waterfall chart. He has neuroscientists, sociologists, geneticists. He maps out the defendant's genes for aggression, his traumatic childhood, the exact chemical state of his brain on the day of the crime, the environmental pressures. He proves mathematically that every neuron fired exactly as it had to.
The waterfall defense. My client is a droplet in the waterfall, Your Honor. He could not have done otherwise.
Right. There was no ghost in the machine that could have chosen differently. Now here's the twist. In a truly Nietzschean world, the judge accepts this.
He agrees. The judge just buys it.
He agrees completely. He bangs his gavel and says, "You are right. The concept of guilt is a metaphysical error left over from a more primitive time. Your client is as innocent as a flash of lightning that strikes a house and burns it down."
So he lets him go.
No, this is the catch. The judge continues. However, the state is also a biological organism. The state also acts out of necessity. The state has a drive for self-preservation, for health.
Oh, I see where this is going.
The judge rules, just as we wipe a fly from a window pane, not because the fly is evil, but because it is unhygienic and bothers us, the state must eliminate this defendant, not as punishment, not as justice, but simply as a matter of social hygiene.
That is chilling.
It strips the legal system of all its moral theater. There are no sermons, no talk of paying your debt to society, just cold biological elimination or containment. It tests Nietzsche's assertion that punishment is a misnomer and that society only ever acts in self-defense.
It removes the cruelty of moral judgment, but it also removes the dignity of the criminal. He's not even a sinner anymore. He's just a broken cog.
Exactly. It's human, all too human.
Okay. Experiment number 2, the dream logic reversion.
This one plays on Nietzsche's idea that logic and science are like calluses formed by the pain of reality. We learn to think straight because reality hurt us when we were wrong.
The stone hurts when you kick it, so you learn the stone is real and you shouldn't kick it.
Right. But Nietzsche says in dreams, where there are no consequences, we revert to savages. We mistake connections. We believe our will causes things. So here is the scenario. A new technology is invented. A lucid life simulation.
Like a full immersion VR world where you control everything.
Exactly. People can plug in and live entirely in a lucid dream state where they control the physics. If they want to fly, they fly. If they want a castle to appear, it appears. There is no resistance from reality. None at all.
What happens to their minds?
According to Nietzsche's text, these people would rapidly devolve intellectually. Without the hard reality pushing back, the faculty of logic would atrophy. It would become useless. They would revert to animism. They would start believing that their wishes cause events.
Magical thinking.
Pure magical thinking. They would become magicians, again, like our earliest ancestors. Within a generation, you'd have a population of people who are technically advanced on the outside, but intellectually savage on the inside, completely incapable of distinguishing cause from effect, truth from desire.
So truth depends on pain, on friction.
Or at least on the possibility of error hurting you. If error has no consequences, truth ceases to matter. It loses its survival value.
Wow. That explains a lot about the digital filter bubbles we live in today.
It certainly does, doesn't it?
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today. I mean, a huge amount. We've gone from the dissecting table of morals, through the narcotic haze of religion, and all the way up to the thin mountain air of the free spirit.
It's a dense book, it's aphoristic, it's difficult, but the lasting impact is just undeniable. This work really laid the foundation for modern psychology. The idea that there are hidden, subconscious, often embarrassing motives behind our noblest actions, that all starts here.
Freud basically took this and ran with it.
He did. Freud famously called Nietzsche the man who knew himself better than any human who ever lived or was ever likely to live.
That is high praise.
But I want to leave the listener with one final provocative thought, if I may.
Please, let's hear it.
Nietzsche admits, almost in passing, that error has made man deep. The belief in God, in sin, in the soul. These massive errors made us sensitive, imaginative, creative. They gave us our greatest art and religion.
Sure. You can't have Dante's Inferno without a belief in hell.
Exactly. But Nietzsche's entire project is to eliminate these errors, to scour them away with the acids of science and history. So the question is, if science successfully eliminates all these errors, will it also eliminate the depth of the human soul?
Will the free spirit be free, but shallow?
That is the danger. Can we be wise without being dull? Can we have truth without losing beauty? That is the challenge he leaves us with.
Something to mull over. Thank you for listening. This has been Talk Treatises.